for the next part of our truth tester, we have a second part. We are again going to put on this old family Bible against my chest so that we can see the invisible reality of the forces of inertia at work in an object. An object that is not moving won't move until a force acts upon it. Inertia, the idea here is, folks, young people, that inertia can provide protection for you against outward forces that are striking against you. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to break this cement block on my chest. Do not ever do this at home, ever. Don't even try this experiment at home if you have a mature, responsible adult with you. In fact, a mature, responsible adult would not let children exercise this next demonstration, this truth tester. So leave it to us here at Truth Testers to take on all the danger. We have 38 years of combined experience in danger. So allow us to do all the dangerous stuff so that you can see the reality of inertia in action and Newton's law. Can you help me? Like we said, never try this at home. Now what we're looking for is the law of inertia. He's going to act with a larger hammer now. And you're going to see the laws of inertia at work in the force of the hammer. Hit it on the other side. All right. I hope you got that on the online there. Okay. Thank you, assistant. Thank you very much. Thank you. So today, you know what, guys? We've proven without a doubt that this truth tester is a fact. That the invisible forces of inertia can provide protection from outside forces that are bearing down on it. Just like we saw in our demonstration, our second truth tester in front of our storyboard, that the forces of the hammer that were hitting against the block, I was protected from the forces of the hammer by the invisible force of inertia present in this old family Bible. There you have it. There is the inertia does have the power to provide protection against invisible forces, right? So this truth tester is a fact. And you know what? It's a fact not just about inertia, but another long list of other invisible forces that make life on earth sustainable. You know what? This tester reminds me of this place in the Bible. It's in the 6th chapter of the book of Ephesians. Paul's reminding the believers there to put on the full armor of God. He informs them that as Christians, you know what? Our struggle is not against flesh and blood. Our struggle is not against people. But our struggle is against spiritual forces that are in heavenly places. Spiritual forces of evil and darkness, powers that we can't see with our own human eye. But, you know what? They're still very real powers, like inertia or gravity. You know what? The Apostle Paul, he goes on to tell the Ephesians, he tells them why they should put on the full armor of God. He says, so that you may be able to resist evil forces. And having prepared everything in your life, you can take a stand against the invisible forces of evil that are so very present in the world around us. You know what? The Apostle Paul, he says in Ephesians chapter 6, he says it just like this. He says, put on truth like a belt, righteousness like a breastplate, the shield of faith to stop all the flaming arrows of the evil one, and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And he says, put on the helmet of salvation. Wow, you know what? It's pretty awesome stuff. It's sort of like in a cheap sci-fi flick where some warrior knight in armor kills a dragon or something. You know, anybody likes those except for me? All right, except you know what? Our armor is invisible armor. Well, except the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God. The sword of the Spirit the Word of God. But you know what? Could you imagine with me this morning allowing someone to hit you on the head with a hammer without the invisible forces of inertia present in this Bible there to protect you? Could you imagine that? Or could you imagine allowing someone to smash this concrete block while it rests against your chest without the invisible forces of inertia present in that family Bible there to provide you with a source of protection, right? I would not do it. I would not have performed these truth testers without Sir Isaac Newton's first law of motion, right? Inertia. But you know what? That's what so many of us do every day when we don't put on the full armor of God. We leave ourselves unprotected from these invisible forces of evil in our world. And remember this, just because you can't see something with your human eye doesn't mean that it doesn't exist and that it's not real and present. You know what? We go out every day without our armor and then bam, just like that it happens. We're hit on the head with a hammer from hell or shot with some flaming arrows of the evil one. We're left unprotected simply because we chose to disobey the Word of God, and we chose not to put on the full armor of God so that we can be able to resist the forces of evil. Let me ask you a question this morning. If you were in front of a fireplace and it was freezing cold outside like today, and there was a big stack of wood next to this fireplace, right? Would you take some of the wood and put it into the fireplace in order to stay warm? I hope you would. Even though it's another invisible force that we fight. Cold is this invisible force we fight, but we all know it's real, right? Just like putting wood on the fireplace fights cold. You know what? Putting on the armor of God fights evil. All right? We've got to understand that. And we know that the inertia of one object provides protection from the forces that bear down on it, from the blows or forces of other objects. We know inertia of one object can provide protection from blows and forces of other objects. So also, the armor of God can provide protection from the blows of the evil forces of the enemy.
We have raised our hopes and our
My prayer for us today is that we would get it. My prayer is that you would get it. That you would understand, just as there are these natural forces that we can't see at work in our world, that there are also these supernatural, spiritual forces that we can't see, but that are very much at work in our world. So may you take action this morning by putting on the full armor of God so that your life may be protected against evil forces. Also, I hope that God will open the eyes of our hearts so that we can see our need to be in His hands. That you'll realize that the Christian fight isn't against people or our parents or someone you don't like at church or at school. According to the Bible, the Word of God, our fight is against principalities and powers and rulers of darkness and spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Man, it's against invisible forces. So this morning, may you put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand in the day of evil. When it comes to resisting invisible forces, may you put on the Word of God. When it comes to resisting invisible forces, may you place yourself in